Hello, welcome to this week's coffee tasting. Today we're going to be looking at Rugembe Hill, which is a red Bourbon from Burundi. This happens to be the second lot of a 5-bag purchase from Omwani coffee importers, which actually happen to be based in York, which is not too far from where we are in Hull. So today I'll be going through 4 different batches that I have roasted for our coffee subscribers and releasing for our market customers on Saturday. Our order volume this week has meant that I've needed to do 4 batches, which is actually pretty useful because I've been able then to take the learnings from the Rugembe Hill, the first release from Omwani, and bring that forward into this coffee, the Rugembe Hill. So how did I approach the roast? Knowing that this is a coffee that will present quite a high level of acidity, I wanted to really try to maximize that. Coupled then with the understanding from the Rugembe Hill, where there were a couple of instances where I had slightly overdeveloped the coffee, so I had muted some of the acid profiles, which I wasn't particularly happy with, but you know, these are the things that you sort of you have to understand when you're providing an artisanally approached food product for people. So for this, my emphasis was to try and really develop that beautiful fruit acidity. So my targeted roast time was somewhere between 10.5 and 10.75 minutes on our 12 kilo Probat. I shortened our post first crack development time. That was again just to allow those fruit acid compounds to just pop a little more, but I still wanted to try and attain some degree of balance, and hopefully on the table we'll get something that will really form the blueprint for every batch going forward. Over the past couple of weeks as well, I've been asked by quite a few people, how do I actually come about these flavor profiles? How do I, when I'm tasting coffee, look at or come up with the supposed marketing material around these descriptors such as blueberries or red apple or chocolate? Well, the way I approach looking at coffee, and when I say looking, what I mean is actually tasting, but this is I try to broadly split the process up into 4 categories. Well, 3 categories and then some language around it. So firstly, I will think about the acid complex of the coffee. I'll then think about the mouthfeel. So what I mean by that is, like, how does the coffee sit on your mouth? You know, is it quick finishing? Is it thin? Is it limp? Or is it coating and heavy? That type of language. I then look at the aftertaste. So is it a short finish? I.e., when I drink it, does it just dissipate within 10 or 15 seconds? Or is it one of these coffees that sits around for some period of time and really sort of increases that length of perception of flavor on your palate? And then once I've viewed those 3 buckets, so to speak, I then try to put language to those. So with the acid complex, I would think, yeah, is it citric? Are we looking at malic? If so, like with malic, could I be looking at apples? With citric, could I be looking at lemons or grapefruit or orange? And then if it is orange, like, is it a zesty orange, or is there some sweetness in there that could give that sort of sweet satsuma type of character? So that's the way that I approach how I'm tasting when I'm tasting the coffees. And the next part of this tasting today will be to go through each of the cups, and I'll try my best to convey exactly what's going through my mind in how I'm trying to build up the language in essentially how I'm going to be promoting and selling this coffee to you. So let's get into the tasting. As I do every week, I'm going to be using the process called cupping. This is a way that we will standardize everything that's gone into the brew process. So if there are differences in flavor between each of the cups, we can only assume that it's because of the roast or because of the coffee, depending on how or what we're looking at. And what I mean by that is whether we're tasting green coffee samples, so samples that importers or farmers have sent us for assessment. I would want to be looking at the different origins, but in this instance I'm looking at different roast approaches and whether one roast is better than the other, and then also have I, as the roast master, inputted any roast defects, which will detrimentally affect the coffee. So I'll start on cup number 1, I'll end on cup number 2. I'll just go through the pass quickly, and I'll also then describe how I'm approaching the acid, aftertaste, mouthfeel, and language around it. So cup number 1. Right, so let's talk about the acidity. There is a very prevalent level of acidity in all 4 of these. Maybe the most heightened is cup number 3. There's a nice play on this zestiness of the acidity. So if I was going to be adding a descriptor to this zestiness, I would likely say orange. So when I say zest, I mean a little bit of that white pithiness that you get with orange zest. There's a touch of that sort of orange oil in there as well. The interesting thing about this first pass on the acidity is that there's also a little play on apple. I'd maybe say red apple, but in that apple, I would also say the skin rather than the actual fruity, fleshy part of the apple. So quite interesting, to be fair. So next I'll just look at the mouthfeel. This coffee is light medium. The medium element is such that it's not super thin like you would expect maybe of a washed Ethiopian coffee. This, however, definitely has structure. It is sitting around my mouth, a good sort of coating feeling on my tongue. However, it isn't something that is really heavy. Why? I feel that the acidity in it is just helping to lift that some. So the body in this, yeah, light medium. It would lend itself because of that to filter brewing, that acid complex and that brightness, that zestiness, plus this light medium body would definitely, if I was a barista coming at this coffee for the first time, I would definitely be thinking about filter coffee, batch brewing, that type of thing. So the next point is we'll just talk about the aftertaste. I'll just have a little taste through the cups. So, one thing to note as I've gone through this, we're probably 18 minutes post putting the water on now. That red apple and that juicy, zesty orange is really coming through now. However, on the aftertaste element, I would say that it's an aftertaste that isn't going to be lasting forever and ever, not like some of those low altitude Brazils, those espresso type coffees that would really sit with you for some hours. This coffee will definitely hang around on the palate, and it will give you a vanilla, maybe. There's some brown sugar in there as well. Probably pretty typical of Burundi or that northeastern African complex. So similar flavor qualities from some of the red bourbons that you get from Rwanda as well. There's good geography around there to give those vanillas, muscovado, brown sugar, and that's definitely what I've got going on my palate now. Overall, it is a coffee that has a zesty, zippy type of acidity, a little bit pithy, so definitely orange zest and a wonderful like red apple skin, that type of thing. Juicy cup, an interesting finish where there's this blend between vanillas and brown sugars. Just going to be a really lovely coffee for anybody who's wants to focus on a fruit forward filter style brew. So I really hope you enjoy the coffee and see you again next week.